Subtropical Gardening Podcast with Paul Plant.
Welcome everyone to Subtropical Gardening Podcast. Today I'm going to do something completely different. It's a journey and a why do I visit Botanic Gardens. I'm currently at the Cairns Botanic Gardens. I'm going to feature some plants which I think are worthy for any person to visit to such destinations. And it's a case of plants, species, diversity, biodiversity, fascinating, interesting plants, things that you don't normally see in the climate that you live in. So when you travel, visit a botanic garden. They are definitely one of the best tourist destinations as a gardener I think you should be visiting. And I love the fact that there are plants here that I can't grow at my place, but I get to see them growing really well. So the next time you visit a garden and I'll show you more of the Cairns Botanic Garden. Exploring the Botanic Garden means you get to see plants that you don't normally see. You get to see them at different times of the year. You get to see plants from other countries where you can only see them in a collection at a Botanic Gardens. And again, one of the best reasons to visit a Botanic Garden is to expand your horticultural knowledge, expand your knowledge of the world and of the natural biodiversity that exists. So whether it's a tree, a shrub, a ground cover, a herb, a flowering plant, a foliage plant, Botanic Gardens allow you to explore what there is. And by doing this, you actually support tourism, you gain knowledge, and you get to see how you can use some of these plants. Now, for example, one of the philodendrons, during COVID, this was used as a popular plant, or I should say sold as a popular plant at a very expensive price, and you could buy them from the local garden centres. But this is how you can use them mass planted in your garden with a little bit of shade, a little bit of protection, some good mulch. You learn how to garden correctly. You learn the importance of compost and mulch. You learn that you can put little tiny plants like these peacock gingers in as feature points throughout your garden as you walk from one point to another. You can explore different usage of plants and how a botanic garden has used their knowledge, the botanical knowledge, the knowledge that they share with other botanic gardens around the world as to how to use them, how to mix them, how to blend them in a landscape context. The information is absolutely fantastic. The diversity is worthy of any trip. So it doesn't matter which country you live in, doesn't matter where you've come from. Exploring a botanic garden will expand your knowledge. It's definitely something to consider on your next tourist trip. It's almost like walking through a jungle. You've got foliage in the way, you've got a duck, you've got a weave, you explore, you get to see how plants naturally grow and how they form. Sorry, there's a couple of birds in some of the trees nearby me. You know, this is a wonderful way to enjoy nature as it is, as it should be, in a mass planted combinations. You don't need stringent lines, you don't need formality. Nature doesn't create plants in lines. We should not conform to certain old style architecture landscape concepts. Why not explore the diversity that exists in nature? Explore the range of plants. Indoor, different backyards, planted in a landscape, under trees. That is stunning. How can you not say that these are boring plants? The Dieffenbach here, the dumb cane, is looking absolutely stunning. And to the base of it, Chinese evergreen, the aglaonomas. Absolutely beautiful combination, part of the Araceae family, and next to that, all the spathiphyllums, the peace lilies. That's a really good combination, a lesson to be learnt in how a botanic garden blends their plants. And it's impossible not to go to a botanic garden and visit their hothouse if they have one. A tropical dome or a structure where they have the diversity of plants. Everything from the exotics, the equatorial tropics, the really hot, humid areas. You've got orchids here at the Botanic Gardens, anthuriums, just Stink plants, Amorphophalluses. Exploring a place like this is absolutely fantastic. More of the Medullinas, more of the Amorphophalluses in all different types, all different species, different stages of growth. Look at the size of this thing. It is an absolute wonderful, eclectic combination at the Botanic Gardens that is definitely worth a visit. So it doesn't matter which country you visit. Botanic Gardens are critical for our biophilia connection to nature. We are part of the natural world. We need to connect to that part. You get to see some really fascinating foliage plants. That's Selaginellas down there. Stunning. Some flowers of more of the Araceae families. And I've forgotten the name of that. Cannot remember. I'll figure that one out and I'll put it in the notes. The palms, the orchids, the Marantas, the Satanthes, the Xanthosomas, more Medullinas, palms, tropical bamboos, cycads. It is absolutely glorious to see the range of plants here. Oh, and some more Amorphophalluses in the tropical dome here. I just spin around. One spike, relatively fresh, an old one at the top, and just the foliage form just here. These experiences, the success of a city is all about its botanic garden. That's what I think. So every city should have a stunning botanic garden. These are tourist destinations. Without any doubt, it's actually one of the most popular things people visit when they travel. They want to explore the natural plant species. They want to explore diversity. And a botanic garden has the capacity to show you so many different types of plants in one location. So it's a place where buses go, tourists go. So councils need to accept the fact that investing money in a botanic garden will support the local community, because people will stay for a few days to visit, to explore these botanic gardens and the range of plants that they have. So visit whatever botanic gardens you have in your area. I'm going to do some more exploring. So don't forget, if you do like this video and you are enjoying it, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. I've only just started. I've only done a few minutes and I will be doing a lot more here at the Cairns Botanic Gardens. So what is a botanic garden? Well, basically it's a location which is a botanical reservoir of plant species for posterity, for research, for education, for conservation and preservation. It's vitally important for the continuation of these species to be seen at a later generation so that we protect the plants now. It's an obligation for councils and government to fund and look after these resources for the people to enjoy and as a resource for future generations. It's really important that we understand this point and press our local council people to invest in the money to preserve, to improve the Botanic Gardens. A lot of gardens may not have structures that are here at, say, Cairns Botanic Gardens or Sydney or Perth Botanic Gardens. And some of the regional Botanic Gardens might struggle to, invest in a lot of stuff. But it is vitally important that a qualified person is in charge, a horticultural person is in charge of the curating of the stock, looking after the plants, making sure that they are being looked after and replenished. So behind me, you can see Cairns Council is going through a process of rejuvenating garden beds, removing plants that haven't achieved the desired effect and replacing them with new improved plants, or I should just say rotating the plants display so that people get to see something. As I said, I've been here a quite number of times. Each time I come, I like to see what's new. As I've said, I love the Botanic Gardens because it shows me plants that I cannot grow in my garden. A prime example is this palm behind me, the lipstick palm. It is iconic through the warmer parts here in Australia and in the tropics and subtropics elsewhere. It loves heat, it loves humidity, but it really truthfully cannot survive well in the cooler subtropics where the winter cold is too much and it doesn't achieve the full tropics. Now the lipstick palm, it's kind of a little bit odd in that it can also tolerate the very long dry winter, which is iconic to the dry Townsville area. And yet it absolutely thrives into a lovely specimen in Cairns, where it also gets a distinctive wet and dry season, but a lot more rainfall in Cairns and far more humidity. It's about choosing the right plant, but enjoying the plants in other climates that you either cannot see, cannot grow, or due to quarantine restrictions here in Australia, we cannot get. And I'm perfectly fine with that. I prefer people not to import illegal plants so that we keep our biodiversity, our plant species, our animal creatures alive and thriving. That's part of the role of a botanic garden, the research, the conservation, making sure what plants are brought in are safe. Remembering that in Brisbane, one of the first botanic gardens that was created was to assess plants for cropping here in Queensland, Australia. And through that, I think that's the City Botanic Gardens, those crop species were then used to determine what will grow outdoors in the farming areas in the local areas. So botanic gardens have a role and have had a role in agriculture, in research, in, as I said, conservation and preservation. They are really good for horticulturally, but not sure if you can hear it in the background. There's also concerts, entertainment. These are locations and places that the council activates with the usage of community events. Concerts and music and plays, all of these things expand the knowledge people have and introduce them to the horticultural aspects of a botanic garden, the resource that is available, this plot of land full of trees and shrubs and climbers. They have a function, and tourism is a major function here. I would like to see more of the regional botanic gardens invest more money into botanic gardens. That's my personal opinion. I would like councils to commit getting curators for these particular structures, these facilities, so that the best can be achieved for the council, but also for tourism and for the community. Using this space is important. Using it wisely is critical. Getting the best practice of horticulture in the gardens is critical for the success of the gardens, which means plant selection and sharing that knowledge between the botanic gardens so that the best results can be achieved. Time for some more videos, I think. More sharing here at Cairns Botanic Garden. One of the key things I think a lot of the councils forget is that botanic gardens provide an outdoor environment for the public to exercise. You've got botanic gardens like the Brisbane Botanic Gardens, which is on a hill, and walking up and down that, it really makes the heart pump. It's this exploration through the Botanic Gardens, looking at the plants, looking at a pathway, exploring where does that go. That exploration is really important. And I think it kind of feeds a particular need us humans have to wander into the bush, explore what is around us. Yes, if we see the native vegetation, excellent. But botanically, just the diversity here is beautiful with all the palms and all the other plants. This is an opportunity for us to really see what is available, for us to recognize what nature has created for us to enjoy. And again, walking up a pathway, making sure it's accessible is critical. Is it going to be wheelchair accessible? Are there any restrictions to walk through the gardens? Very, very important. As I mentioned, part of the role of Botanic Garden is to increase knowledge, is to educate. And having areas, I've just entered the herb and spice garden. I'm surrounded with things like the peppers, cardamom, gingers, pandan, cinnamon, all of these plants with information, the clove tree, information, signage that allows people to understand what these plants are used for medicinally, what they're used for culinary. The learning tool of a botanic garden is critical, which is something that the councils are investing more in. And it's something that we as the public can enjoy when we experience a botanic garden. As I've said, the Botanic Gardens is also a place for music, for activating the space so that the community can use it. So councils, public, please use the gardens, please invest in the gardens, please make sure they continue. And I will, of course, do some more to do with the Botanic Gardens. So I think that's going to be the end of my video here at the Cairns Botanic Gardens, encouraging people to visit, to explore, to improve the Botanic Gardens also, because as ratepayers, folks, send your communication to the council, get them to invest more money into the Botanic Gardens and to use the gardens for activities, for music, for horticultural workshops. And if there are any friends groups related to those Botanic Gardens, please join them. This is Paul Plant signing out for the Subtropical Gardening Podcast this week. Thank you, everyone. Something I forgot to talk about is the terminology we use. The two words that tend to be shuffled between the usage is Botanic Garden and Botanical. The internet says the two words are interchangeable, and I suppose that they are. I prefer the word botanic, but it does infer that the garden is over 100 years and has that historical connection to it. The trend these days is more towards botanical garden, but I personally just don't like that description. So the best thing to do is check with your local authority, see what the locals say, how they say it. Do they use the word botanical or botanic? But for example, there is the Brisbane Botanic Gardens, the Noosa Botanic Gardens, and that tends to be the trend here in Australia. I think in the US, it's more botanical. But just check, as I said, with your local people. The other thing is that a botanic garden is a living museum of plants of all types, ground covers, shrubs, climbers, trees, the whole spectrum. An arboretum, which is a term that is sometimes used, is really a collection of trees to showcase the size, the dimension, the beauty of those trees, whether they're seasonal or even local endemic species. An arboretum is definitely a wonderful place to visit, but it is different from a botanic garden. And then, of course, the other last term we sometimes hear is herbarium. And that's where the dried pressed specimens are recorded and preserved for future generations to assist with identification of these plants. So the herbarium is dead plants, dried plants of the living plants that were in the Botanic Gardens. The other thing that quite often comes up for debate is it a botanic garden or a park? simply to explain this is that if there is a collection of plants of some genetic material, a family of botanic plants, then in that case, it is a botanic garden, not a park, and therefore should be looked after by a curator, should have the resources attached to that botanic garden. It is not a park. In botanic gardens, you can still have music, you can still have events, you can still have plays, but it is not a park. So that's something very important for council people and for the community to be aware of. I suppose it's a little bit like an engineer not being able to tell the difference between an auto mechanic issue and a traffic engineering issue. There is difference between a garden and a botanic park, and we want everyone to embrace the difference. Definitely use your local parks, but also visit your botanic gardens to see the diversity that is there. That's just a summary and the conclusion of this Subtropical Gardening podcast, so I can wrap it all up with a couple of definitions to help you understand the terms that we use in horticulture. So if you have liked this video, this podcast, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe, because your support is really helpful in helping me to create more content for you to watch, for you to listen, for you to enjoy, and hopefully to learn from. Once again, thank you very much.